And we are back. All right, so this section we are just going to talk about the scientific method, which hopefully you should already be familiar with from biology. Okay, so but whether it's a biology experiment or a chemistry experiment, using the scientific method still works the same way. So it's still, the scientific method is a type of procedure, for processing and understanding certain types of information. Just this year, instead of biological problems, now you're going to solve chemical problems. And one main point I want to stress is that you are always asking questions and you're experimenting to gain new knowledge. And with the scientific method, it is okay if you get an unexpected piece of data, or you get a result that you might not otherwise would have predicted. That's okay. That's an important part of science. So with the scientific method, there's a couple different steps. So first, you perform the experiment in order to test a certain hypothesis, and you do that by making observations. And from the lab we already did, if you remember, there's two different types of observations. There's, remember, quantitative, those that involve a number and a unit. And then there are those qualitative observations, those that involve the 5 senses. So whenever doing an experiment, just like you did for this past one, it's important that you write down all of your observations, whether they be numerically based, quantitative, or observations that you make with your naked eye, those that are qualitative. And I want to stress that every experiment might not progress smoothly, or it might not go exactly how you expect it to, but that's okay. You should never make up data or adjust your data to try and make it so it fits your preconceived notions. Okay. Then, once we do our experiment, we might come up with a theory. So we're going to skip this next slide, so go down here. A theory is a model or an attempt to explain what happens, or it's a certain type of interpretation. So always with all of our labs, you're going to come up with some sort of theory, some interpretation of your data. Okay. And from that, you're going to test your hypothesis, which another way to think of a hypothesis is an educated guess. And then we won't do this, but a natural law, summarizes what happens, and it's a fact. It never changes. So the law we talked about with this last experiment was the law of conservation of mass. The fact that, yes, some of the mass of the candle disappeared. However, that mass didn't actually disappear. It just got converted from candle wax into carbon dioxide gas and escaped into the air of the classroom. So that is the law of conservation of mass. Okay, then going back a slide, we already talked about the difference between quantitative and qualitative observations. You are formulating your hypothesis, which is your educated guess, or explanation for your observations. Then finally, when you are performing the experiment, you're testing whether your hypothesis is valid. And one thing I want to stress here is this is where your observations become most important. So this is something that you yourself witnessed, and you have recorded it into your lab notebook. So that's going to be one of the things I stress the most this year, is making sure once you are doing your experiment, you have to, one, make observations, and then the second part is to write them down. All right, that's it for today. I will see you next time.